Imagine starting a fitness journey at 52, weighing over 280 pounds, and now at 55, feeling better than ever after losing over 100 pounds, improving cardiovascular health, and building muscle. Maybe you've taken up running and you want to maintain muscle while shedding fat. Maybe you're eager to reclaim your health at the same time. In today's episode, we're talking to someone who did just that. He used our physique development approach to massively improve his health and body composition while qualifying for the Boston Marathon. You're going to learn from him how to balance it all, how to balance nutrition, training, and physique goals while doing what you love. Today, I have Ben Lewis on the show. Ben used our physique tracker to help him track, measure, and achieve a truly remarkable transformation, shedding over 100 pounds and qualifying for Boston at 55, like we said in the intro, while building and maintaining muscle mass at the same time. Yes, you can prioritize what you love to do and what kind of athlete you want to be and still achieve your physique and health goals. We'll explore his transformation, the strategies he used for sustainable fat loss, and how he makes it all work. Plus, later on, Ben is going to share his number one tip if you're trying to prioritize performance and health at the same time. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
So we met in our Facebook group, in the Wits and Weights Facebook group, and we're like, let's get together because you have an incredible story. I mean, you know, we love posting photos and looking at the before and after and all that, but really it's what's deep down inside and kind of the process you went through to get there and why this thing works and what didn't work. So just to start off, I want to put the audience in your shoes. You know, You're about to start one of your training sessions right now. Maybe it's one of your hybrid training sessions, you're training for the marathon, whatever it is. Maybe you're lifting and running. You know, I don't know. You're going to tell us what it looks like.
Yeah, I will.
I want you to take us there, right? Into the gym or your favorite trail or wherever it is. What is going through your mind as you prepare to tackle the disciplines involved?
Oh, wow. What's going through my mind? So typically, I either run or lift first thing in the morning. So I'm getting up out of bed, getting some nutrition in, depending on which one I'm doing first on a particular day. And I'm really just thinking about the workout, just thinking about what I need to do, what I need to accomplish, what's the purpose of this particular workout today. So say, for example, I'll talk about today because so today that I did leg day first in the gym. So, I was knowing that we're recording this on a Thursday and Saturday is my long run day. So I knew I've got 2 days before my long run. So I knew I could really push it on my legs. So I'm really thinking about, how I'm going to lean into the Bulgarian. I was doing Bulgarian split squats, Romanian deadlift, some cable step ups. And so I'm really going in thinking about hitting that hard, knowing that I had an easy run after that. And so, I go in, I hit that workout, get some more food, get a couple of medjool dates, get some carbs in. I actually eat a little bit of protein before I lift when I do a lift and run back to back. So I had a protein shake and some banana and prunes before I went, then had medjool dates afterward. And I took off for a 7-mile super easy run. Yeah, I know that I know a lot of your listeners are probably more strength training focused. So 7 miles does not sound easy, but in terms of the taxingness on my cardiovascular system, I knew I'm going to be super easy on this. One thing I've actually started, and I recorded one today, I will force myself to be able to sing a song while I'm running. So, real low heart rate. I know zone 2 training is real popular these days. Well, this run was actually about 50% zone 1 and 50% zone 2. So it's going to be that easy, and I'm just kind of pushing that run. And
come on.
And it was fun, and it was faster than I would have anticipated a zone 1, zone 2 run. So that was nice too. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. That sounds like a lot of fun and definitely more than a lot of listeners probably do in a typical training session. Because you're right. We're focused on lifting. And I remember years ago attempting to train up to a half marathon. And once I was at 4 miles or above, I'm like, this is a lot of running for me.
It is.
And I've done 5Ks and I'm like, that even just like wins me. But a couple of things you mentioned was, hitting it hard, knowing you had an easy run after that. That strikes me as like a really good kind of mindset approach or trick where, you're contrasting things and saying like, it's not going to be that bad. So I should go after it now. And then you mentioned, you got very specific on your protein carbs, which I love. People are always asking, what should I eat before a workout? And you talked about some fruit, some dried fruit, prunes, date. I love that you got specific there. And then with the zones and all that. Yeah, man. So what are you training for right now?
So theoretically, I'm going to do another marathon in December. I qualified for Boston this past December. However, your listeners may not be aware, for the Boston Marathon, it's number one, you have to hit a standard time for your age. So I made that standard by about a minute and a half. However, based on the number of people who have put in applications, sometimes they have to cut off that time even further than the standard. So my standard was 3 hours and 35 minutes. I did 3:33 and some change. My strong suspicion is that I qualified. I got the T-shirt, but I won't get in the race. Um,
That's not fair, man. That's not fair.
There was a lot of consternation about it. This year for the one that just passed a couple of months ago in April, it was like a 5.5 minute buffer you had to have. And frankly, I did well. I mean, I qualified for Boston, but I felt like even then, I felt like I could have done better. There was some mitigating circumstances that day. So I want to crush the marathon. I want to conquer the marathon in December, run Boston in 2026, and then frankly be done with marathons, move more to the half distance, the shorter distance.
Yeah.
We can talk more about that later, but yeah. I want December to be my third marathon and Boston to be my last marathon.
Okay. And again, your attitude, I love it, man. It's infectious. Like I wanted people to hear that, because you're like, well, it's worth celebrating that you qualified, and yet it doesn't have to be enough. Like you want more, and that's fine. Right. Like I totally get that. There's a healthy frustration that drives you. And that's cool, right? Like there's a point where it can get too much, and there's a point where there's maybe not enough, where you're just not pushing enough. Let's go back in time, because I want the listener to kind of go through your history here and start about 10 years ago, right? 2013, you got down to about 175 pounds. From what? What were you at the max?
The max when I stepped on a scale was 277.
Okay.
I don't, when you're overweight like that, at least me. So I grew up. I grew up as an athlete, and playing basketball in high school and all that stuff. And I represent a lot of guys that I think we could eat whatever we wanted to because we were so active when we were younger. I was playing ball 4 or 5 days a week for 2 or 3 hours. I had a bowl of butter pecan ice cream every night before I went to bed. And I weighed 155 pounds when I graduated high school. I'm 5'10".
Okay.
I had some not good eating habits, and those slowly over time ballooned into, I was about 278 when I was 43, 44 years old, however old I was in 2013. And actually, a guy from my church started a Facebook group. I had never heard of it. He started a Facebook group at the beginning of 2013, and he was overweight. He invited basically kind of all the overweight dudes that were heavily involved in the church to a Facebook group, and he called it "Let's Lose It, Fellas." I went and looked it up again today because I wanted to see "Let's Lose It, Fellas." It was using the Lose It app, which I didn't know there were weight loss. This was 2013. I didn't even know there were weight loss apps at the time, and so it was just kind of a lark. And I was like, I need to do this. In the back of my head, I'm 40 at that point. I guess I'm 43. My wife is pregnant with our second child. And I know I'm going to be 62 when she graduates from high school, and I'm class 2 obese, and I'm worried about health. I want to be around for my daughters, and we have an older daughter than her as well. So it was kind of always in the back of my mind. This is something I need to. I need to deal with this. I need to take care of this. I need to get back to a healthy weight.
Yeah. The health was a driver, but the values were really like living for your family and being there, and not being, and like you said, you're representing a lot of other people. I mean, men and women who hear this, who life has made things very different than in their 20s and they're getting older and they haven't kept up with things. So you did lose a bunch of weight back then, but maybe not in the right way. We want to understand what that looked like so that we can contrast it to what you did later.
So, I went in the app, and the app gives you the option, how much weight do you want to lose per week? And it maximizes at 2 pounds. So I chose 2 pounds. I want to do it as fast as possible. I can't tell you, other than I just want to do this, why I chose the fastest weight loss. It didn't there's no logical reason for it. Like it wasn't, I want to get thin for this event. I didn't have anything coming up. Nothing like that. It was just, I want to lose as fast as possible. I didn't know any better either. So, and, they had forums. Lose It had forums back then. And people were saying, well, don't eat back your exercise calories either. And, I started exercising. And so, I was 5'10", 270 some pounds, eating 2,300 down to, I think, 1,800 calories a day. And by then, I started running, and I was lifting a little bit. I was running I was doing probably more cardio than I should have for body composition stuff. But anyway, I was running, lifting, and doing all the things. And basically the weight loss, I looked at the journey, looked at the journal that I have of that. It was like 2.5, 3 pounds virtually every week for 7 months.
So a good solid 1% or more of your weight every week. Yeah.
Got to be, it was more. I mean, I was still losing 3 pounds a week, 2.5 to 3 pounds a week when I was 210, 200. I mean, and so it was getting harder and harder. So I'd have these big, you get starving, you have a big binge, it goes up, then you can grit your teeth for 2 weeks, and then you just can't take it, and you grit your teeth, and I did it, but it was not sustainable. And long story short, it kind of all fell apart. I started running. I got pretty fast. Yeah, I was getting some attention for that, and so I was on Strava, which is a running app that you share your runs, and everybody getting all these likes and blah blah blah. And then we moved. We lived in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. We moved to Greensboro, North Carolina. And, the time right before the move, when you got all your stuff packed up and you're eating carrot takeout like every single night. And then the 3 or 4 weeks after, you're eating takeout every single night because you're still unpacking. And I put on weight, didn't have time to exercise, and my times were a lot slower. And again, it was so outwardly focused on people seeing how good I was doing, how well I was doing, and I wasn't doing as well. And I just kind of went, I went into a cocoon and basically gained it all back over the course of, it was a slow gain back I ended up heavier than I started even. And so I won't go into all that detail, but I guess you want to take that to the beginning of the end of 2021.
Yeah. Let's sit on some of this, right? Because I'm sure people are listening thinking like, oh man, I could identify with so much of that. First of all, the external validation that you were seeking, right? It's like you put that in the bucket of motivators that are outside of you that maybe aren't sustainable as motivators, right? Or even they're unhealthy motivators. The fast food while moving. So we built our house in 2018. Now that was a couple of years before I got into this stuff as well myself. And then I became really good friends with the McDonald's manager, because it's like a block away from here. And I was like just exhausted and distracted, and it's like easy, it's convenient, and you don't have a routine, you don't have this discipline that you probably have now. And then you gain it all back. Like you said, you probably didn't gain it back at 3 pounds a week, like you lost it. People need to understand that, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, I just got fat all of a sudden, or I just gained it. But if you really are honest with yourself, it probably took a long time.
Yes.
And means you can easily reverse it, with the right approach. So, all right, fast forward to just about 3 years ago, 2021, you were 52. And then you're back up to 280 or 277 is the max, but whatever.
Oh, no, it was more than that. It was,
this one was more than that. Okay, got it.
I have to tell you, the before picture I posted in the group, technically it was from 2020. It was December 2020, my birthday. It was my 52nd birthday. And I was going to start, right at the new year, because my birthday's in late December. And I was going to start right in the new year. And I didn't. and I didn't. The funny thing, I can't really tell you what happened because I don't really remember the detail. But in March of 2021, so I really started in terms of like tracking my food, paying attention to what I was doing. It was March 15th, 2021. Somebody asked me what clicked, and I said, honestly, it was probably a non-busy weekend where I had time to plan and get a couple of meals together and cook a couple of things ahead of time. That probably was what it was, to be honest. It was just because, again, it's in my head for all this time that I've got to do this. I've got to take care of this. I have got to take care of this. And so, I think about like these online trolls that love to body shame people. I'm going, there's probably 2 categories of people that are obese. There's people like me who are, it's constantly in your head. It's not a little, it is constantly in my head. Every night when I would walk upstairs and I'm winded after I walk upstairs, I've got to take care of this. Every time there's, I see people out in public, I've got to take care of this. Every time there's an event back in my hometown that I want to go to and I'm thinking, I don't want anybody to see me like this, I got to take care of it. It's just, it is a constant battle. So it's not like it's not like I was never thinking about it. I was always thinking about it, but something hit that third weekend of March in 2021.
Because I want to hear what the second type of person is, but would you verbalize that often as well, or was it mostly in your head?
Oh, it was here. It was
so
here.
It wasn't like to everybody like, I gotta I gotta get back in shape. I gotta do this.
To my wife.
Your wife, yeah. Okay.
To my wife, but no, not out in public or anything. I would just say the second type of person, they're not concerned about it either. And why are you concerned about it if they're so concerned about it? Point being, leave people alone. That's my point. There is just no matter where they're at, just leave them alone. Okay,
agree. It's your personal journey. Absolutely, you have to be ready for it. And you got
So anyway, it's not helpful when I know, and I think most people are probably where I was. The vast majority of where I was of, oh my gosh, I need to take care of this. I don't need somebody else beat me up. I'm beating myself up enough. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and that applies. I mean, honestly, that applies to so many insecurities we have about ourselves. It may not just be
true.
It may be a little overweight. It may be just your physique in general. It may be something related to work or your relationship or whatever. It's like, yeah, you're constantly telling yourself, I've got to do this. So what prevents people from doing it? I love what you said though when you talked about taking a non-busy weekend and planning. Like that actually struck me because I know I'm a really busy guy, right? You can imagine. Okay, between the podcast and the work and everything else, sometimes surprisingly, I just have this like 2-hour block of nothing, just very surprisingly and rarely. And when that happens, if I could just sit down and like do something that's just been totally neglected, it can take your mind off, the stress of it, but also give you this insight and clarity to go forward and take action. So is the lesson from that we have to like create those moments? Have you thought about that too much?
That's a great question. I haven't thought a ton about it, but I think, ultimately, it's creating. I mean, if I had created that space at another time, I mean, my goodness, it was we're talking coming to the tail of the pandemic. It's not that I didn't have non-busy weekends in 2020. I mean, come on.
Sure.
We all had non-busy weekends in 2020. Beginning of the pandemic, I did lose a little bit. Got distracted. I don't remember why I got distracted, but I did. So, but creating that space and really just seizing that moment.
Moment. Yeah.
See, I think that's, not waiting till Monday, not waiting till the new year, not just seizing the moment when it comes.
But there's magic in that, man. And I think I'm going to necessarily sit on this topic, but there's a lot of people probably listening who are like getting motivated by this podcast and not taking action. I hope most people are, but if they're not, like where you were, what is it that they can do to seize that moment besides just do it? And I know sometimes it is just do it, but seriously, people want to know, like, what's the secret, Ben? What are your thoughts? I know you're not a guru. We're just asking honest opinions here.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I would say this: progress definitely gives you momentum. And early on, I think momentum is critical and crucial. So, progress could be a number on the scale. It could be, yet last week I was able to jog for 30 seconds, and this week I can jog for 35 seconds. It's seeing something where there's some sort of tangible evidence of, okay, this is working. I am getting better. Now that's dangerous because sometimes, we know the scale can be a fickle master, and it may be that you're more tired and you're a little bit slower than you were last week, or your heart rate goes a little higher, or whatever metric you might be using. That can be dangerous, but Saban, trusting the process at some point of this stuff works. It really does. And I can say that, and we may get into that more.
We're going to. Don't worry, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts.
This stuff really
here.
does work. It is math and science in the final analysis. But there's definitely a mental mindset piece of it. But there's a lot of math and science involved too.
I can totally empathize with that. You know that I'm a geek at heart, a nerd. I love the data. Yeah. And like, you're right. Sometimes you just have to say, almost like forget what you're thinking and your emotion about it and just say, you've got a process, you've got some numbers, plan it out, start doing it, see what happens, like test it out. But this is really important because the insight here for people listening is, okay, you've got to seize some sort of moment. You got to have the space to do that. You've got to seize it and then do something that gives you quick progress, quick wins to get motivation. What were those for you in the first month or two back in 2021?
Well, I started tracking my calories. I got a calorie count. It was higher than what I was doing back in 2013, but still probably not high enough ultimately. And that changed over time. Yeah, I did see the scale move. Actually, the first 2 or 3 days it went up and then it started going down. I had a bicycle and I started riding in the neighborhood. And, one thing, when you are really, really out of shape, I found this to be in 2013 as well as in 2021. When you're really, really out of shape, you make progress pretty doggone fast.
That's a great point, man. Because your baseline is so low.
Your baseline's so low. So
the relative change.
I don't remember the numbers, but I probably did a 10-minute bike ride on this street at 7 miles per hour the first week, and it was probably 8 or 9 miles per hour the second week. Just, oh, okay, I'm getting better. It was probably that big of a difference almost quick. I'm kind of doing it every other day. And I would recommend, whatever cardio, whatever strength training you're doing, don't try to do it every day.
Yeah.
Take every other day, take a rest. If it be a walk, jog, walk. If I were going to start over, that's what I would do. I would jog for 30 seconds and walk for 3 minutes, and jog for 30 seconds and walk for 3 minutes. It's probably how I would structure it. And if you can't jog for 30 seconds, jog for 15 seconds. If you can't jog at all, walk for 30 minutes. Just track it. So I did see, I saw my bike ride. I didn't start in 2013 with running at all. I was afraid of my weight and my knees.
Makes sense. Yeah. So again, another powerful quote you said, when you're out of shape, you make faster progress. I mean, like, that's a great thing to latch onto, because that's a positive reframing of being out of shape. It's like, it's funny because I'll have like these discovery calls with somebody who's like 300 something pounds. We just had a new client set up who's, on the heavier side. And I have this big smile. I'm like, I'm so jealous of you right now because you have so much opportunity to change from where you are.
Yes.
And it actually doesn't have to be that hard because you've got some benefits of being out of shape. And it's like, it's a weird way to think about it. But like, if you have excess fat, that's energy that your body will start using early on. That actually makes it easy to lose weight and easy to build muscle versus when you're leaner.
Yep.
Right. So it's kind of like reframing of wherever you are, you've got things going for you. You've got some strengths to go with. That's pretty cool. Why don't we get into some nuts and bolts? I mean, start with nutrition, since you mentioned tracking macros. What you could either go back then, or you could just say like how it's evolved and like what your general philosophy is of nutrition.
I'll tell you one thing, and I am a big fan of tracking protein and calories, not necessarily not all the macros. And my primary reason, I'm not a fan of meal plans at all. And my reason for that is, I want to feel empowered to make these decisions myself. And when I started tracking, you start learning. I learned that walnuts are healthy, but they are a lot of calories. I mean, they're just a lot of calories. I learned what was worth it and what wasn't worth it, quote unquote. What indulgences were worth the calories, and some weren't worth it for me. And I was empowered to make that decision. It wasn't some named diet telling me you can't eat carbs, or you must go less than 30 or 50 grams of fat a day, or you must do this. It was me being able to say, okay, in some cases, like, I like cheddar cheese, but you know what? I do reduce fat cheddar cheese now. It doesn't taste as good, but doggone it, it's not worth it.
It still scratches the itch of having cheese.
It scratches the itch. It makes it worth it. But I still eat walnuts. I just eat fewer walnuts. I love walnuts. But I now I understand, and I manage the amount of walnuts I eat.
So for you, a healthy amount of walnuts is less walnuts. It's not like a walnut is healthy or not, right? It's just for you, less walnuts is healthy. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it really was I would wander. I work from home. I would wander in the kitchen and grab a handful of walnuts once every hour and a half or so. So I probably was eating 1,000 calories a day in walnuts. I'm not exaggerating when I say that.
Okay, I hear you, man.
It was probably 1,000 calories a day in walnuts.
Just plain dry walnuts?
Oh yeah, I love them.
Okay.
I can't even tell you how much. Yeah, my wife joked me I'll get if talk about balance, I'll get a cheesecake for dessert on my birthday, say for example. I'll say, I want some walnuts on the side, and my wife would interrupt and say, "You don't understand how many walnuts he wants."
Really, don't just put 2 on there. Yeah.
You don't understand. He wants more walnuts than you've ever given anyone. Anyway, so nutrition. So structuring my nutrition. Number one, like I said, I like tracking because it has empowered me to figure out what's worth it and what's not worth it. Where I can do an indulgence, where I can decide, you know what, I want chicken thighs, not chicken breasts. And in order to do chicken thighs and not chicken breasts, that means I'm going to do Greek yogurt for breakfast and not eggs, or I'll do more egg whites and not eggs for breakfast. I can make those trade-offs and I can make those decisions, and they work for me. I'm definitely a fan of the vast majority is whole unprocessed foods of what I do in my diet. But fitting in the indulgences, we just bought. When I say just bought, I just yesterday had my first from it. What's it called? The creamy. What's this
Ninja
thing?
Creamy?
Ninja Creamy. The things that, oh gosh, that thing is ridiculous.
I know. It opens up a whole new world.
That thing is, it's a game changer. Yeah. Absolute game changer. My 15-year-old daughter heard me say that. She's the one that got us to buy it. She's standing at my office door now, looking very smug.
There you go, man. Because then you could have ice cream that actually doesn't do the trade-off that you have to make with ice cream.
I made a 350 calorie pint of ice cream that has 40 grams of protein.
Yes. The protein is the game changer.
And it tastes like vanilla ice cream.
I know.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Anyway, yeah, so I eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruit. The keto zealots don't come from me. At this point, because I'm running and lifting, I am in a cut at about 4,100 calories a day average I'm eating.
Oh, man. Well, we're all jealous listening to that. Like, wow, okay, you do move a lot.
And I've been consistently dropping body fat and gaining a hair of muscle based on your calculator since mid-January. Just on, it's kind of since 2021, late 2021, I got down to under 190 or so. Since late 2021, I haven't been above about 210 or 215 or so. And so, that's been between 175 and really the 210, 215, that was a one-time thing. So really between 175 and 205 for 3 years now.
Yeah.
So
okay.
2.5 years. Yeah. Anyway, but sorry, nutrition. I should.
No, it's all good. These are all tangent. Trust me. I take notes and we want to go off on these because that's what people are asking. I mean, first of all, sustainability is the buzzword we always throw around, but there is a reason for that. And it sounds like you've taken that approach. I like how you said, okay, you're not a fan of meal plans. Neither am I. I've done episodes about it. I have one called The Perfect Meal Plan. That's basically a mind shift when you listen to it, because it's like the perfect meal plan is the one that you make for yourself that works for you, right? Like that's the spoiler alert.
Agree 100%.
Right? And I just did one recently, actually just came out this week, how to allocate, 1,200, 2,000, and 3,000 calories.
I heard that one.
But again, it's like you got to be flexible and pick it for yourself. So, but what you said was it empowers you to know what's worth it and not worth it. And I want people to understand how that's distinguished from if you weren't tracking or you were trying to eat intuitively. And I understand there's a place where you could live at maintenance and not have to track and all that. We know that. But tell us what your thoughts are on that, how it empowers you. Whereas if you weren't tracking, if you just ate mostly whole foods, why it might not be as successful.
This varies from person to person. And so I like to say I am aware. I listen to a lot of podcasts, by the way. So I've heard you say that, I'm sure, but I've probably heard other people say it too. So they all kind of run together. I run like 8.5 hours a week. And so I listen to podcasts while I run. I'll run too fast if I listen to music. So I listen to a lot of, all health.
Do you listen to it 1x or do you listen to it faster speeds?
1x.
Okay.
1x. Okay. Just 1x. Just straight up. Calm, easier. Most of my running is easier running.
Tracking versus not tracking.
I am aware from listening to a lot of podcasts that people struggle with getting enough protein. That is not me. If left to my own devices, I would eat 300-400 grams of protein a day. I'm not kidding you. When I make even now, when I'll make a meal plan the day before, here's what I'm going to eat tomorrow, and it's invariably okay. Now where am I going to cut the protein so I can get enough carbs and fat in?
I know the type. I know the type, man.
Okay, I can only eat 8 ounces of chicken. I can't eat 10. That kind of thing. So I can testify to this. I'm not I mentioned cheesecake, but other than that, I don't really like sweets. I don't like candy. I don't like chips. I don't eat any of that stuff. Even when not tracking, I eat mostly whole unprocessed foods, but I will eat too much of them. Just quite bluntly, I'll just eat too much. And I just kind of have to understand, because I am super active and I can get away with it to some degree now. So I will, but I know myself. So I like to do it just to keep those numbers. I think I could do intuitive now if I wanted to. In fact, I may do it when I hit maintenance. I'm probably, I'm less than 2 months away from hitting where I want to be, most likely. Probably in mid to late August, I will get to right where I want to be, body fat wise, body composition wise, and I'll go to maintenance for the official marathon training block. So I'm not trying to lose weight while training for a marathon.
Of course.
For me, tracking it reins me in terms of here's what you need to do and here's what you need to pay attention to. And for me, intuitive would be too much protein, too much fat. I'm not a carb hound. I get them in because I need to get them in because of my running and lifting. Yeah.
So again, you're like dropping lots of wisdom bombs today. Seriously, you don't even know it, but like, because the way you're phrasing things, people need to hear this. What Ben was just saying is like, he doesn't even eat all the things that are blamed on obesity and people getting fat, right? Like too much sugar, sweets.
Oh, gosh.
He doesn't even eat that stuff. He eats mostly whole foods, but he just eats too much. I mean, how many times have we talked about just, it really does come down to energy balance, even though there are 1,000 roads to both sides of the energy balance equation that make it harder for people. And like for you, it's just, you want to eat. Maybe you don't like food. Maybe you just crave it. And you've got to track just to get that information. But that information empowers you to then make the trade-offs to still enjoy what you want and get your results.
Shout out to Felipe. I know Philip for a long time, and I know how passionate he is about healthy eating and body strength. And that's why I chose him to be my coach. I was no stranger to dieting and body training, but I always struggled to do it sustainably. Philip helped me prioritize my goals with evidence-based recommendations while not overstressing my body and not feeling like I'm starving. In 6 months, I lost 45 pounds without drastically changing the foods I enjoy, but now I have a more balanced diet. I weight train consistently, but most importantly, I do it sustainably. If a scientifically sound, healthy diet and a lean, strong body is what you're looking for, Philip is your guy.
Speaking of tracking and spreadsheets, since you mentioned it, why don't we talk about the Physique tracker, which is what got us here today originally, and kind of the overall method of tracking body composition. Just you tell us your story about using it and how it helped you.
Yeah, so you dropped that thing. I don't remember when you actually posted it. It was March or so?
When we launched Wits and Weights Physique University, because it's one of the tools in there, and I gave it out for free. Yeah.
You gave it out for free.
Yeah.
And I grabbed it. I don't know, it's another product. I had just bought the Zozo suit, if y'all have heard of that thing. It measures it does your body measurements for you. It's just a lot easier than tape measure.
How much does that cost? Let me ask you. I'm curious.
It's $100.
Oh, really? And it's just like neoprene, or what's the material?
I think it is neoprene.
Yeah.
It's just like a bodysuit.
Yeah.
They now offer a subscription with your phone, whether your phone will do it. And they say that the Zozo suit is to 0.5 centimeters or I don't know, 0.5. And the suit and then the phone is less accurate kind of thing. But honestly, I've done it with a suit and I've done it with a tape measure. I think it's accurate enough that I can trust it. So anyway, I had some measurements with it. And then you dropped this Physique tracker, and I was like, oh, let me start plugging these measurements in here and see what my body composition actually is. And what I saw was, okay, and I thought this was the case in this little cut I've been in since January, but this affirmed it that, like, I'm not losing any muscle mass.
Yep.
According to the tracker, I've gained 1 pound of muscle mass since January and dropped about 20 pounds of body fat, which is consistent with what I see in the mirror. But what it did for me is it allowed me to trust the process even more and go, okay, I can bump up. And I was feeling kind of hungry, and I'm tempted to just grab all the things on these days. And Macro Factor is telling me you can eat another 150 calories a day. And that now this tracker is saying, and you are losing fat and gaining muscle. All right, I'm going to say yes to that extra 150 calories a day. And that was something that I was not, eating the minimum number of calories. Now I'm gotten more into the mindset of, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to increase things now. And
even though you're on a cut,
even though I'm on a cut, I'm going to be willing to increase when it's, and I have been increasing my running. I was intentionally trying to increase my running base. So it makes logical sense that I would be burning more calories. I am running 55 to 60 miles a week. I've never run more than, I hit 60 once during my last marathon bill, but I've never consistently run at this level, this number of miles a week. So it makes all the logical sense in the world. But I'll be honest, without the Physique tracker, I would have said, I don't think I'm going to just stay where I am. I don't trust. I'm not going to take these extra calories.
That's awesome. I love that use case, man, because it shows you the value of having the different types of measurements. A lot of people will use the Physique tracker in a very limited scope, just kind of before and after, get the numbers and understand what happened. You used it to take action, or at least to comfort your mind about what other data was telling you, like triangulating, like double checking.
Yes.
And that's why I love, not just scale weight, but trend weight and body composition and measurements and biofeedback and all that. So that's pretty cool. Now you gained a pound. So here's what's interesting for people listening. I might as well offer the Physique tracker as like a freebie for this episode. So, I'll include a link to that, but it's, just to be technical, it's lean body mass, which is organ weight plus muscle plus fluid. But since you're losing weight, it is mainly muscle you're looking at, because you've effectively lost. So here's what usually happens, Ben. People will see a certain amount of loss of muscle and they'll get freaked out because it's a little more than they thought. And in reality, I'm like, hold on, when you go back to maintenance, some of that's going to come right back because it's not muscle, it's just fluid, right?
Right.
But you actually saw it go up. So in essence, if you applied the same logic, you actually might have gained even more than that in muscle. Did you think about that?
No, I didn't. That is, you're right. That is a possibility. Because you pull in some fluid with the muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you've lost fluid by being in a deficit and being in a sort of dehydrated state. Yeah. And so if it's showing a net gain, you've actually gained more than what it's saying a tiny bit. And and you've demonstrated like you can body recomp even when you're in a deficit.
Even when you're in deficit and even when you're running 60 miles a week.
So let me ask you about that. Would you recommend all the listeners that they should run 60 miles a week to increase their expenditure? Okay. All right.
Heck no. No, absolutely
because people
not.
are thinking that, Ben. People are like, oh, that's how you eat 4,000 calories. Yeah.
That's why, unless you have a marathon goal, and if there are some of y'all out there that do want to improve your running, there's some great podcasts that will help you with that. Running Explains, a great one with Scott. Alyssa Lennox does the Messy Middle, and she talks a lot about hybrid training too. But the number one thing is, and I know that this is a buzzword now in the fitness world, but that zone 2 running, that easier running. So my increase in mileage was, running coaches will tell you do 80% of your runs easy, 80% of your mileage easy, 20% hard. I was doing 90% easy, 95% easy during those weeks when I was increasing so that I could recover, so that I could still lift and lift well, so that I wouldn't get injured, in my running. So make sure that if you do want to increase your running, that you're increasing it slowly, sustainably, that you can recover from. And that's really where that zone 2 really shines. It's the most you can do and still recover easily because you don't
I love that.
Build up a lactate. We won't get into all the technical.
No, I got it. It's the same thing with lifting, right? It's like 5 to 10 hard sets will start to get you toward the upper end of like the perfect amount where you still get a lot of recovery. Whereas if you get to like 15 to 20 sets, it's optimal to like build as much as possible, but now you're impeding recovery. So with running, same. I've heard that too from runners like who've evolved their thinking over the time, especially as they get older, right? Because that's when you start to really feel it that, no, come on, take a step back and you'll actually get more results over the long term. Really good. With your eating habits, besides macros and calories, which I've been thinking of doing an episode that's like, can that just be enough? In other words, sometimes we criticize if it fits your macros for being too simplistic, and we need to consider health factors and saturated fat and fiber and everything.
Yeah.
Which I agreed with to an extent, but I also know when I started my journey, I just thought of macros and it made a massive improvement for me. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. There's the 80 to 90% and there's the 10 to 20%. And so it kind of depends on where you are. So when I was 280 pounds, you know what? Just dropping the body weight has huge improvement to all-cause mortality, even if you do lose some muscle mass. So I don't recommend
Hence
it.
Hence the case for the Ozempic and all those drugs today with a lot of folks.
There's a case for that. Mm-hmm. So it kind of how far away from healthy, whatever that means, are you? So, now I'm sitting here, I'm right at 180 right now, and I'm about somewhere 15, 16, 17, 18% body fat, somewhere in there. So this is where some of those 10 to 20% things do start to matter a little bit more. Yeah. So my thought is, major on the majors first, getting your calories, getting your protein, getting your strength training, getting some cardio in, the things that Philip did you talk about on your podcast. So those are the things that are going to drive, whatever percentage it is, but a large percentage of those things, a large percentage of those improvements. Then, you may need to hit to dial in some other levels when you start to get closer to ideal and you start to need, in order to make progress, you need to hit some of these other things.
It's really important that you said that, right? Because 80-20, 90-10, whatever, it's counterintuitive, I think, maybe for people who are a bit on the closer to obese weight side. And I've seen this. I've had clients, mostly males who are upper 200s or low 300s, and it's tough sometimes for them to want to eat more. I'm telling them to eat more in some sense. And they're like, well, that doesn't jive with like, I've gained weight all these years, but they're lifting and they're eating protein. And I'm like, I don't even care about your fiber and your saturated fat, to be honest. Like, I really don't care, because you know how much change is going to happen just from what you're doing here. And then once you're slimmed up a bit, you're down to 225, 250, and you're lifting, you've got muscle, you're going to be like, what do I do next? And you're naturally going to get there. So that's a good point.
I'm paying attention to saturated fat. I don't track fiber because I eat so much fruit and vegetables.
Fair enough.
I was tracking it, and then I started looking, and I was like over 70 grams every day. And I'm like, why am I even looking at this anymore? Because I'm hitting it. I just, the way I eat.
Yeah. And that's a good point. You may not, for some people, certain things are easy and you just don't have to track or even care about it because it just happens. And that's where you can take the stress off and not track everything, but track the things that you need to change. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about nutrition, some of the sustainable fat loss stuff. I do want to talk about your training a little bit because you talked a little bit about the running. You have a hybrid training approach, but what does that mean? Concurrent training, whatever all the buzzwords are, lay it on us.
Yeah.
Because this is not our strength as a podcast is not that, but I want people to understand what it's like.
So I want to just say how I started. I started thinking, oh my gosh, I'm 55 years old, or 52, I guess, 52 at the time. I'm 52 years old. This is when you start to lose muscle mass, sarcopenia. I'm getting older, but I don't want to lose muscle mass. So I need to not drop muscle mass as I drop this weight. And also, I get winded every time I walk up the stairs, and I can't, do things that I want to do. We have a large yard. I get really tired doing basic yard work. I need to improve my cardiovascular health as well as just for the daily activities of living. So I didn't come at this. I'd never heard of concurrent or hybrid or any of that stuff. It was just, these are two things that I know are good for my health. So I'm going to do these two things. And eventually, somewhere along the line, I started podcasts and fitness Instagram and this hybrid concurrent thing. It was what I was already doing, though. But by the time I learned that term, I was probably lifting 3 to 4 days a week and running 4 to 5 days a week. But I was probably in a 30-ish mile run, I think I was doing upper lower splits at the time. Maybe I'd switch to push pull. I prefer push pull, a 6-day push pull leg, but because I live close to my gym, I can get there easily. So point being, it was just, I came at it with a health mindset of these are things that are going to be good for my health and health span and lifespan. And so I just kind of attacked both of them. And then at some point, they started to, okay, how do I do both of these and have time for them? And, you have to figure out, what season are you in right now? Right now, I'm training for a marathon. And, if I listen to you, and I've heard you say this, I listen to you and you'll say, well, always do your lifting before you're running. You listen to a run coach and they will say, always do your running before you're lifting.
It's what you care about most. Yeah.
What you care about most, you do first. And so I'm like, I've kind of adopted that, for my own sort of, what am I focused on right now? Right now, I'm building a base. I'm running mostly easy running. I can really get lifting hard. So I am lifting first these days. I'm working harder on my strength. I got a huge cardiovascular base. I mean, I'm running 60 miles a week, but I'm running easy. And I can do that with very little. Frankly, even after a hard lifting session, I can run 30, 45 minutes later and not see any substantive difference in like my performance. My heart rate is this and my speed is that. And that's probably right at what it would have been if I hadn't lifted beforehand. So I'm seeing that anyway. But you just, but there's going to be seasons, I can look at my log from last fall when I was getting ready for the marathon where I qualified in Boston. I dropped my lifting 2 days a week.
Yep.
And, there's a lot less. So, I may drop it or 2 to 3 days and, just do two upper body, 1 lower body. And so it just, you just have to kind of focus on whatever it is that right now in this particular time is important to you. I've actually already drawn up a 2025 schedule. I'm presuming I'm going to mega qualify in December. And in most of 2025, I can just do true hybrid where I'm going to do as much as I can of both, but not overdo it, but just really, I'm going to do a balance, do a real balance thing for much of 2025 is my plan.
Okay, man, some really cool things in there. First of all, you touched on periodization and seasons. You used the term seasons. Yeah. Very early when I got my nutrition coaching cert, that was definitely the language used in the context of like, if you think of an athletic season, you have a preseason where you're prep, season where you go after it, off season where you recover. And then did I miss one? But you know what I mean? One in between. And then the off season is actually where you develop your skill, right? Like you might go after it there.
Yeah.
But you talked about planning into 2025. Just this morning, somebody posted in our community, this is our paid program. One of our courses asks you to put together a 12-month plan. They're like, I want you to think ahead of an entire year. Think about the holidays. Think about what you want to do. Think about how you want to move, the seasons, how hot and cold, like all that stuff, and put together a plan.
Oh, yeah.
And just like you're doing, you're backing it up. You're reverse engineering from, events, dates. Yeah, maybe you have a wedding. Maybe you want to look great on the beach. It doesn't matter. Whatever's driving you, plan it in, because humans are really good at using like special milestones and moments and holidays to drive things. And so we take advantage of that. So I'm just putting that out for the listener. Like, that's a great tip Ben just said, like, plan out the next 12 months. Do you have any advice specifically on how people can start doing that? Like, because they may think it's just kind of overwhelming. What even do I do over the next 12 months,
Well, Excel is your friend. You can put
Excel. Okay, you're going right to the tool. All right, you're like me, man.
For me, Excel was my friend. Okay, here's the weeks in. I mean, literally, I started with just here's the weeks and and then looking at you used a great term there, reverse engineering. So I'm going to reverse engineering. Okay, yeah, all right. The pool opens in Memorial Day weekend, and I'm not saying this was necessarily me, but yeah, the pool opens Memorial Day weekend. I want to be coming right out of a cut then.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people are probably going to think. So think about that. All right, so then I set up. Okay, this is when I'm gonna strength train, and I'm gonna do my whatever 12 weeks or 16 weeks, whatever that number might be, and you work backwards from there. And then for me as a runner, it's like I want to PR a half marathon in 2025, and there's one near me. It's actually in Mount Airy, North Carolina, Andy Griffith's hometown, where the show was kind of based on Mount Airy, and you get to take a picture with Barney Fife-mobile. So that's always like the second week of November. So I'm kind of, all right, second week of November, half marathon training is going to take me 12 weeks. I'm going to work back from the second week of November. And then I think about, all right, so that's when I'll start scaling back lifting. So then whatever that 12 week, I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me right now, but whatever the 12 weeks, some week in September. So up to that time in September, I'm really going to go hard on my lifting,
Perfect, man.
So that kind of thing, just really think about those events, those things that where you want to be at certain times in the year.
As I'm thinking of that, is it a completely perfection oriented plan, or do you put in some wiggle room and some like buffer in there?
For me, I start with best case scenario, just understanding, I need to have grace with myself, and life can happen, and just be okay with that, y'all. Really, just
there you go.
Be okay when life happens. And I get sick a lot less now that I'm eating healthy, whole, unprocessed foods all the time. Or most of the time, not all. I get sick a lot less, and I'm a healthier person, but I do get sick. It may be got to take a week, 2 weeks off just to let your body heal, and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. We see it. I mean, as you get older, you've got the surgeries and the injuries in life, and kids, and COVID, and all these other things that happen. Right. This theory came up with my mind now that I wanted to pick your brain on. Okay, so you're eating like 4,000 calories in a deficit, right?
Yes.
Like your expenditures is 4,800 or
Macro Factor has my expenditure around 4,700.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're eating a lot of food. Like you're just eating a lot in terms of volume and calories and energy.
Yes.
You're running a lot, but you're adapted to it. You're lifting as well. We've seen this kind of unusual outlier version of body recomp. I'm just going to call it that because it's not like results are not typical kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's an element here, kind of a formula that you're applying here that is putting you into a high energy, well-fed state that is akin to not dieting, but because the energy balance is still dieting, that you're losing weight? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I should have said that.
Okay.
I did not specify that. So I am losing intentionally. I am losing way slower than I ever have. Even slower than Macro Factor. I think I set it for 0.05% of body fat. So that's my intention.
0.05% a week. Okay.
0.5%.
0.5%.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's reasonable though. That's, it's moderate. Yeah.
But most people want to get close to that one. So, most people want to, but I'm doing 0.5%. And so part of it I'm losing, and you referenced this when you're, obesity, body fat is energy.
Yep.
And excess body fat is energy. And so, I suspect that my body has been using some of that fat for muscle building. Yeah.
Yeah, but not only that. So wait, I don't want to leave it. I'm going to challenge you on that. Not challenge, but
okay, go ahead.
You're at a much higher level than the average person in terms of your absolute calories. You just are.
Oh, yeah.
For being
sure.
a sub 200 male, right?
Yeah.
Typically, I see people's expenditure being on the upper end, 4,000 on the far upper end, like, a bigger guy and everything. But usually it's around 3,000 to 3,500 at most. And then when they're dieting, they're down to like 2,500 or 2,000 calories. They are getting to the point down where their body feels it, even if it's moderate. You are eating a ton of calories. And so here's where my theory goes is the energy coming in, even though a lot of it gets burned, it's kind of circling through. I wonder if that puts you in a better health state or metabolic state, even while you're losing, such that your body doesn't feel like it's dieting as much. You know what I'm saying?
Right. This is just so much more sustainable in terms of my hunger cues. Yes.
Yeah.
So even though I'm burning it all and losing fat, I do not feel hungry. Yeah. Because you don't have time. I typically eat 1,000 calories by the time my pre-workout and intra-workout and peri-workout, I've eaten 1,000 calories in the morning. Then I'm eating 1,000 calorie breakfast, 1,000 calorie lunch, 1,000 calorie dinner, and 1,000 calories in the morning before breakfast. It's basically how it tends to play out. And I'm not hungry. I program in snacks and fruit and stuff, and sometimes I forget to get up.
And then you fall behind.
I forget to go get an orange or some blueberries or whatever I put in for a snack for the day. Yes, that absolutely happens.
So now you're also running a lot, and so people are going to think, because here's the thing, I always have to caution people, especially when they start working with me, like, we're probably going to do less in the short term because you're probably doing too much and you're stressing your body, especially women doing too much cardio. But now we're talking to a guy here, you, Ben, that's doing a ton of cardio. And so what makes it actually work for you? You talked about balance, but still it's a lot of volume. Is it sleep? Are you getting 9 hours of sleep? What is it that's keeping the stress load down, do you think?
You said that earlier, and now that I think about it, I do think it's the quality. The quality and the amount of nutrition really have to be it. I'm not a great sleeper. It's funny, my wife asked me fairly recently, a week or two ago, she's like, have you stopped drinking for good? Or I said, I don't know. I've literally never been drunk in my life or even tipsy in my life, but I would have a glass of wine here and there. I haven't had any in, I think it was around 2022. I'm not even sure. So it wasn't like a conscious, I'm not going to drink anymore this day. I just kind of stopped at some point. And I'm not saying, so the point being, I don't consume alcohol, which is, it's a recovery inhibitor because it hurts your recovery. So I really focus on recovery and getting walks in and, active recovery on the days that I'm not running or not lifting, doing a little bit of active recovery, doing, real light stuff on those days. I'm not a great sleeper. I know it's important. I try to. Sometimes I just wake up.
Yeah.
And
I hear you, man.
It is what it is. But I'm getting in bed. I am typically in bed before 8 p.m. every night.
Okay.
But I don't sleep 8 hours, almost never.
Okay. No, it's good. It's good to understand. What does your step count come out to be when you include all your running? What is it roughly a day on average?
I don't check it much anymore. It's like 22,000.
Okay. Well, no. So now I want to get to that pivotal, like we teased early on. A lot of people will hear all this, the concurrent training, the hybrid training, and the fact that you went after two goals, right, that sometimes seem contradictory with performance and health. So what's like the number one piece of advice that you would have for people who are like, I do want to prioritize both of those with my approach and my training?
Yeah, so performance and health is similar to the whole thing I was saying about running and lifting. You've got to periodize and decide what right now is the thing I want to focus on. I'll give you my personal example. I said earlier, I really want to focus on just nailing a marathon this fall. Okay. That is not an optimal health goal. It is a performance goal. And quite frankly, I would say as a runner, I feel like I've gotten on a bit of a bunny trail doing marathons. Like, because as I started at health, I'm working on this health, and now I'm chasing this rabbit over here of the marathon and really trying to nail that. I would probably say, even as somebody who's running, who's running 9 hours a week ish, and do a 16 to 18 miler every week, probably 90 minutes is the cap for any run that you'd ever want to do. So point being, I know that I am not optimized for necessarily health right now, quote unquote.
I am getting close to optimized for performance. But as I said earlier, I'm going to change that. I'm going to do this, and I plan to get out of marathon. I plan to get out of the marathon business, if you will.
Yeah.
It's a nice goal. It's a fun goal. And I'm not saying if you're a runner, you could keep running marathons if that's your thing. But I don't think it's optimal for my health pursuits.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yeah. So it makes it, you got to go after one or the other. What are your thoughts on lifting? Because kind of the extreme version of that would be bodybuilding, where again, that's not healthy. But is there this interesting space where lifting weights as a performance goal to an extent actually can overlap more with health, I wonder, right?
Yeah. So for me, I approach lifting and running really differently.
Yeah.
Like lifting, I want to progress. Like all I want to see is getting a little bit stronger in my 6 to 8 rep range. Like people ask me, how much can you bench? I have no idea. I have never 1 rep maxed. I can't come up with a reason why I would want to try to.
Okay. We should talk, man.
No, but I've built muscle. I feel like I'm strong. For a guy my size in particular, I feel like I've got a lot of strength. But I really approach that with a muscle building strength, mobility plyometric sort of.
It is health. It's an aspect of health, is what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm able to approach lifting much more with a pure health thing.
Sure.
I need to build and maintain muscle mass, and that is my focus. I'm not tempted to go do a bodybuilding show. I'm not tempted to take some anabolic stuff and I'm not tempted to be enhanced. None of that. I mean, it's just not on my radar.
Yeah. And similarly, you alluded to the fact that keeping running under a certain level can also be aligned with health. So that, again, there's a spectrum and there's extremes. You can go after the extremes knowing that they're going to be contradictory with the health goal, but not necessarily, it's not going to just trash it, long term. It might even support it long term when you get out of it potentially because you've periodized. And then mentally, I imagine it's like you want it. Like you want to win this thing, right? You want to crush your marathon.
I think the lesson is also kind of what drives you. What's fun and drives you, and what keeps you in the game. Really, what keeps what is it that keeps me going back to the gym every morning? What keeps me running every day? I enjoy it. So
awesome.
You got to find modalities of movement that you personally enjoy. I mentioned I started with biking. I realized.
Yeah, you don't like biking. Yeah, like many of us don't like running.
I just don't like it, and so I have right behind me an indoor bike that I bought that I use. I do use it for recovery ride.
Sure, warming up, recovery. Yeah,
I use it once a week, but it's never grabbed me like running and lifting has. So I don't do it as often.
All right. We touched on so much today, man. This question is coming because you listen to the show, right? But what one question did you wish I had asked, and what is your answer?
Oh gosh, no, I'd written down something and I forgot what it was. We never talked about the scale.
Yeah, it was on. I had a lot of notes, man.
Yeah, that would have been one.
Let's jump into it. Okay, talk about your relationship with the scale. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was in 2013, man. It drove everything. It was awful. It was terrible. It was, I got to get up, and I hope this isn't TMI. Like I got to poop before I get on the scale because I don't want that extra few ounces or whatever,
Oh man, I know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, and it was ridiculous. And now it has evolved to, honestly, it's done it by weighing every day. Ironically, just kind of facing that giant. I weigh practically every single day. When I don't weigh, it's because like I'm traveling or, I have to, for whatever reason, rush out the door really fast. But now it's just another data point. And partly, that's partly because I am tracking and I know my diet's dialed in and I know it worked because I know this stuff works. I trust the process. I keep saying that. And I know, I've had, there's some variability and ability. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not 100% accurate when you're tracking. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I know there's some, but I know that today I've had 4,050 calories, and I know that that's a deficit from what I burned. And if I'm up a half a pound tomorrow, whatever. And if I'm down a half a pound tomorrow, whatever. That's just how it works. And I've seen, I posted it in your Facebook group. I mean, my scale track for the last since January, 5 months has just been, but it's going down. But it's not right. This.
It's not a straight line. It's a lot of humps.
It's not a straight line. Oh yeah, for those listeners, it's a lot of humps. but I know where it's headed. And, even I was able to say, I'm surprised at myself. And when I said it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so weird that I can just say that out loud with confidence, that in 2 months, I'm going to be at 12 to 15% body fat. I just kind of know that. I trust the process that much because I've started tracking it every day and just seeing kind of how it works when you're hitting it. And that also relates to not being hungry. I'm way more confident I'm not going to have these crazy binges because I'm eating enough.
So you're saying your relationship with the scale has improved because you're tracking it every day. You have the knowledge, awareness, power to know this is going to fluctuate. Yeah. Yeah. What do you say to someone who, because I've seen a spectrum with working with clients where 90% of the time that is true. There's 10% of the time where somebody does track daily, because all my clients track daily, where it's still a mental roadblock for them. And I have different techniques that I work through with them because there's usually something else going on and some reframing and things. But how would you talk to a friend who's trying to lose their weight for the first time and they're like, I've been weighing myself every day, but it just jumped 3 pounds today. I'm freaking out. What would you say to them?
I would lead with compassion. I mean, our culture has trained us so poorly in this area. We say it's been interesting as I've gotten into the podcast world to hear you and others use the frame fat loss, which is really what you want to do and not just weight loss. That we're working to reduce body fat. And so I would lead with compassion and just be like, I understand why this is it was a problematic area for me. I can speak to you as someone who, hey, I've been there, man, or lady, I've been there. I totally get it. Here's what did work for me eventually, but I'm not going to say I had a great relationship with the scale. I mean, I've been down again. I've been down under. I've been at a healthy to semi-healthy body weight for almost 3 years now. But I'm not going to say my relationship with the scale has been good for 3 years. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say my relationship with the scale has been outstanding since probably February or March-ish, when I really decided I'm going to lose, and I'm going to lose slowly. Mm-hmm. I'm going to cut slowly. This is the first time in my life I've cut slowly. Every time I go up, I just, I got to get rid of that fast. But no, so definitely, and I guess now that I think about it, I think I would go there. Let's talk about what a slow cut looks like. And that is what has taught me to trust it, is actually doing a slow cut. And I know that I want to try actually your little rapid 2-week fat loss protocol thing. I've heard that. No,
sure.
Once I get to maintenance, I might play with that some. I do think there's a place for that slow loss that really helps you feel confident and better that relationship, where it's like, you know what, I'm not trying to lose 2.5, 3 pounds a week. I don't want to get down to X weight by the beach or by Memorial Day or by, the class reunion or the wedding or whatever it may be.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's well said. I mean, focus on the process. Don't go so fast so you have realistic expectations, and then use the scale as a tool, rather than an indictment on, your soul, which
right. I would say, practically speaking, using something like macro factor. I also just use a good old 7-day average in Excel. I put it in Excel every day, and just a good old is my 7-day average. So that helps. That helps where it's just a data point in the 7-day average, not the be all end all today. I would probably talk to folks about that too. There's also an app. I know you're an app guy. This is a freebie. Happy Scale.
Mm-hmm.
It also does a moving average. And if you have any smart scale, will sync to it automatically, and it can give you a moving average. It just might be an alternative for those that don't want to pay for macro factor.
And actually, if you want to do what Ben's doing with the spreadsheet, and I don't know if, Ben, you want to upgrade your spreadsheet, macro factor uses a 20-day exponential moving average. So you can do that in Excel as well. Yeah. But then it requires more data points.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I didn't mean to be the know-it-all, man. I tend to get into that mode sometimes. So just sharing knowledge. Awesome, man. This has been really cool. Where do you want people to find you and reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. So I am, and I could use the help. I should have said this earlier. I'm going to make a quick statement here. We were talking about folks that, have a lot of weight to lose. I found a random person on Instagram that is just really, when we were talking about making those little progress gains, and I'm watching her get from a 16-minute mile to a 15-minute mile, and the joy that she is having just hitting that little bit faster mile pace. So anyway, point being, those of us that are in these journeys on Instagram, and I've just started following her and just cheering her on. those of us that are in these journeys that we don't have these large social media followings and whatnot, we would love your support. And it's Benny Lou Fitness. I'm sure you'll put the link in your show notes, but it's at Benny Lou, BENELOU _fitness at Instagram. That's where I would love your support. Having that bit of external validation is helpful and joyful, and I think it does help. So
definitely, for sure. If you're listening, go right now. Follow if you use IG, Instagram at Benny Lou Fitness, BENELOU _fitness, and I'll include that in the show notes. And give Ben a follow, please do. If you enjoyed this show and you want to follow him and just say hello, I'm sure he'll say hello back. And Ben, man, it's been a pleasure. I didn't know exactly what we'd get into here, but it's all the good things people need to know about how to tackle this mentally, physically, and otherwise. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.